Well, as you can see, it is about 6:15 a.m. where I am right now. Buongiorno, se vede da mattina. A good day starts in the morning, right? There's a lot of background noise. I'm sorry. I'm in Africa at the moment. It's like 100 degrees and there's no AC, so my apartment window's open. You'd probably hear cars and people yelling and honking, but man, if I close my window, it's gonna get to like 110, 120 in my apartment real quick. So it's gonna be open for this video. Hopefully it's not too distracting. But if you read my original Reddit post about my tips for MCAT studying, a little bit of distraction is great. This is a perfect spot to study. It's gonna be distracting. It's gonna be harder than in the testing facilities. So yeah, I'd recommend it. You don't have to do what I did, but that's what I recommended. I woke up to about, I don't know, maybe 100 DMs on Reddit about um how I got a perfect score on cars. Uh, I I responded to all of them. I tried my best to articulate um in text how I went about a cars passage, which was a bit tricky. So I figured it seemed like a lot of people wanted it, so I took it upon myself. I figured, hey, why not make a video of me running through a cars passage so you guys can see what I did firsthand. Because I think that my method is not usually what people do. Um, Here's my AAMC products. I can tell you that I didn't do any practice cars passages. Um, I only practice cars during full lengths. That's it. And I started at a 126 on my full length for cars, and I got it up to a 130 just by doing that and implementing my strategy that I made. Um, and I thought I'd run through a cars passage I've never looked at with you guys right off the bat. So you can see biology pack, 2 attempts, second biology pack, 1 attempt, chem, 1 attempt, skip those for now. Physics, 1 attempt, section bank, 2 attempts on all of them. But then when we go to cars right here, 0 attempts, 0 attempts. Like I said, I didn't touch cars. On like a passage based studying, I only did cars on my full lengths. So anyways, let's run it. Go to product. If my my Wi-Fi could be a bit slow considering I am in Africa at the moment. So hopefully, hopefully it's not too bad. Okay, passage number one. So first off, what I do is I'll read the title down here, creating minds. Okay, doesn't give me any information. Passage one. I'm going to read the first couple sentences to see if I can understand what the passage is going to be talking about. So from 1890, when he was 9, Picasso's family saved virtually every scrap of paper on which he drew. Harbingers of Picasso's later genius appear in fragmented and distorted aspects of form and scale. Depictions garlanded by numerical and alphabetical. All right, I'm not going to read the rest of that right now. I understand that this passage is going to be about Picasso, and that's all I need to start. So, first off, is I'm going to read every single question. According to the author, Picasso's artistic achievements were in large part the result of his. So, for this one, I know that somewhere along the passage, they're going to be talking about how did he get so good at drawing? Second question. The word nature is used in the sense of, okay, so this one I'm going to highlight nature. And when I'm reading the passage, I'm going to make sure that I look for nature when I'm reading the passage. Next question. As you can see, I'm not reading any of the answer choices. Doesn't matter to me. All I care about is the question. What is the author's response to the standard story about the origin of Picasso's genius? Okay, so another one, I'm going to be looking for a standard story of how Picasso came to be. And just from this question stem alone, I can kind of infer that there's going to be a standard story and the author is going to give his own insights on that standard story. If that, I don't know if that helps you in it, but it kind of helps me prime my brain when I'm about to read this. Question 4. The assertion that Picasso's early productions contain harbingers of his later art is not clearly consistent with which information. Whenever I see these words, I always highlight them because very often when I first started doing cars, I would read the question, yada, 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 answer it, but forget about this word right here and get the question wrong. Even though I understood the question, you forget this very crucial word, you're going to get it wrong. So I always highlight those negating terms. So it's like not or against or never, those sort of words in the question stem, I always highlight. Question 5. Which of the following innovative forms of art that are identified with Picasso most clearly exemplifies his own implied goals? So I know at some point I'm going to learn about what Picasso wanted to do with his art. 6. Which passage information provides the strongest reason to support that Picasso has always been an artist of Apollinaires' first type? Okay, I don't really need to highlight this because I'm going to be able to remember that name. Apollinaire is actually a poet, fun fact. I don't know any of his poems. All I know is that he's a poet. That is it. But yeah, so sounds like we're going to be talking about what Apollinaire thinks of artists at some point in this passage, and I should probably pay attention to that when it comes up because I got a question on it. Question 7 and final question. The author's characterization of Picasso's artistic aims suggests that the retort, "Don't worry, it will," meant that the painting. Okay, so for this one, when I get quotes, when I come across this quote in the passage, I'm going to highlight it. That's basically it. So just from these, I know that I'm going to be looking for this quote. You can start just reading straight from here. I always go back to the first question of the passage, just because I like to start at the first one and then work back. If you're on a time crunch, don't do that because I guess if you're really counting seconds, it takes like 5 seconds to get all the way back to question 1. If you're not, if you're really, really trying to optimize your time, don't bother. That's just what I do. It doesn't matter what order you answer these questions. All right, so I already fully understand the first sentence. Again, this is going to go pretty, usually I can do a complete passage without talking through it, anything like that, in about 7 minutes. That's been about my average. So I usually do get a big buffer at the end to go over and review my answers after I've answered every single passage. This is going to take a lot longer because I am chatting to you at the same time. And I decided that whatever comes in my brain, I'm going to say. Hopefully that doesn't annoy you, but I just trying my best to give you guys my thought process when I'm going about these things. So whenever something comes up in my brain, I'm gonna say it. So we'll see what happens. But I'll start from the top just so we get a fresh bit. Here we go. From 1890, when he was 9, Picasso's family saved virtually every scrap of paper on which he drew. Harbingers of Picasso's later genius appear in fragmented and distorted aspects of form and scale. Depictions garlanded by numerical and alphabetical symbols, a proliferation of trompe-l'oeil, and I butchered that one, I can guarantee that. Please don't make fun of my pronunciations. I'm not French. I'll try my best at pronouncing things, but no promises. Anyways, proliferation of whatever this means, visual puns, outrageous caricatures, incongruous juxtapositions, and the like. We do not know whether Picasso consciously thought back to these graphic experiments when 2 decades later, he and Georges Braque, so Georges Braque, fun fact about him, he enlisted in the French army during World War I, got hit in the head pretty hard and went partially blind and then continues to paint after. I just neat little fact. I know about Georges Braque, were inventing cubism. But at least at an unconscious level, Picasso could tap this reservoir of youthful experimentation. I'll preface this as that I like art quite a bit. That's how I know who Georges Braque is. Obviously, I've heard of Picasso before this. Don't ask me my thoughts on him, but yeah. So in my mind, read this first paragraph. Not much I can take from it, just that we do see a time shift right here. 2 decades later, he's inventing cubism. So 2 decades prior, he was doing these kinds of things. Just we do not know whether Picasso consciously thought back to these graphic experiments when 2 decades later. So yeah, that's all. It's just that's all that I would pull from this without answering any questions is I usually pay attention to dates. I don't, maybe that's just me. I don't know if it's helpful at all. Dates just stick in my head. So when I see dates or time frames, I usually focus on those. Anyways, the standard story. Okay. Oh, remember, we were supposed to be looking for that. The standard story told of Picasso is that his precocious talent enabled him to surpass, without effort, all other artists in his milieu. It is worth considering Picasso's own opinion that it is often considered early genius is actually the naivete of childhood. Okay, so the standard story is everyone thought that Picasso was just a prodigy and he just was able to do everything with ease. But looks like we're going to see what Picasso thinks of this. And Picasso says, it disappears at a certain age without leaving traces. It is possible that a young child who shows unusual flair will one day become an artist, but he or she will have to begin again from the beginning. I did not have this genius. For example, my first drawings could not have been hung in a display of children's work. Okay, so sounds like when he was a kid, he wasn't drawing like a kid would. These pictures lack childless. At a youthful age, I painted in a quite academic way, so literal and precise that I am shocked today. At an exhibition of children's art, Picasso once quipped, when I was their age, I could draw like Raphael, but it has taken me a whole lifetime to learn to draw like them. Okay, so actually, this is pretty neat. I quite enjoy this passage. Raphael, an Italian painter from the 1500s, actually most famous for his what is it called? School of Athens fresco. It's in the Vatican. And it happens, this is a corner of it. This is my screensaver. It's also the screensaver on my phone. I took this picture in the Vatican. I liked the angle, the corner of the fresco, and over here you can see the corner of the School of Athens fresco in the Vatican. Let's see if it will load. Yeah. Okay. So kind of neat. Sounds like this is going to be a fun passage for me, at least. See that right there? That little baby's right there. These fellas are in that corner, right? Yeah. So kind of neat. I'm Italian, so that's it. I like the Vatican. It's a beautiful place. You should visit. Definitely. Like if you could visit one place in Europe, I'd say go to the Vatican. Doesn't matter if you're a Catholic or not. Okay. If you can tell, I've got ADHD. And I'm telling you, if I saw Raphael on my actual one, I'd have been thinking about this as well. It really is. My mind just goes wherever it wants, but I try my best to reel it back in so I can answer these questions. Okay, moving on. In such remarks, Picasso exalted children's productions, but also distanced his youthful self from the romantic view of artistic talent. It is true that the works preserved by Picasso's family support the notion of Picasso as an aspiring academic painter, as his father was. and not as a charming nymph. However, we lack drawings by Picasso from his first 8 years, and so cannot determine the resemblance of his earliest efforts to those of other children. Okay, so it looks like we've got paintings of Picasso from years 8 and on. Ages 0 to 8, we have no idea what he was drawing. Don't know if that's important or not, but like I said, I pay attention to ages and dates, so here we are. Moreover, his youthful caprices and marginalia, maybe that's how you pronounce it, not sure, may have been as crucial in his artistic development as his formally conceived early paintings. My own conclusion is that Picasso's output during the first decade of his life was unusually skilled, here we get to, if you remember, we have a question asking about the standard story, and then what does the author, what's their response to the standard story? Are they for it? Are they against it? Whatnot. Whenever I see these things like my own inclusion or therefore, or those are the only two that come to mind at the moment. My own conclusion and therefore, or finally, like those sort of things, the closing remarks always highlight those, just like I have like a spot that I can focus in on when I go back and look for these. Anyway, so we're about to read it. My own conclusion is that Picasso's output during the first decade of his life, another date, was unusually skilled rather than frankly precocious, but that no word short of prodigy can describe him in his spectacular progress over the next several years. Interesting. Apollinaire, all right. We knew we were going to hear about this guy. Asserted that there were two kinds of artists, the unreflective virtuoso, who relies on nature, and the cerebral structurer, who relies on understanding. Mozart could serve as a prototype for the first, Beethoven for the second. All right, here's my ADHD coming in. Kind of neat. I lived in Germany during COVID. I lived in Dusseldorf, which is about 40 minutes away from Bonn, Germany, where Beethoven was born. Beethoven was born in Bonn in 1770. And so I went to his house, got to see his his personal piano, his personal violins, his glasses. That was pretty crazy. But yeah, Beethoven, born in Bonn, Germany, died in Vienna. Mozart, fun fact, also died in Vienna. But he was when was he born? Well, he wasn't born in Vienna. He was born in Salzburg, Austria, 1756. And he died in he was 35, so 1791. All right, yeah, so Mozart died 1791 in Vienna at the age of 35. Beethoven, born in Bonn, 1770. He also died in Vienna, but that was 1827, I'm pretty certain. That would have made him 56, 57, depending on when his birthday was. Anyways, here we are again, my ADHD taken away, remembering dates and years and stuff. To preface, I've played piano since I was 4, so I'm well versed on Mozart and Beethoven, and the history behind them because I was tested on it as a kid. Anyways, as a prodigy, Picasso epitomized the second type. So as a prodigy, Picasso was like Beethoven, but said Apollinaire, he was able to convert himself into the first. Never has there been so fantastic a spectacle as the metamorphosis he underwent in becoming an artist of the first type. Picasso himself sensed the paradox of this transformation when he complained to Gertrude Stein, "If I can draw as well as Raphael, I have at least the right to choose my way." And they should recognize that right, but no, they say no. All right, not really sure what this last bit means, but I don't think it's really pertinent to anything in the story, so hopefully I won't have to decipher it. The portrait of Gertrude Stein in 1906 stands out as an indicator of this transformation. Picasso asked his subject to remain for over 80 sittings. Then he went away for the summer, annihilated the recognizable facial features, and finished the portrait away from Stein, substituting mask-like features for realistic ones. This is classic Picasso. Chastised because the portrait did not look like Stein, Picasso reportedly responded with one of the notable artistic one-liners of the century. Don't worry, it will. All right, remember we were supposed to be looking for that one as well. Don't worry, it will. Okay, so this was a pretty sparse highlighting job for me. I'll tell you what, sometimes I don't even highlight. Usually I highlight these types of things, especially when there's, oh, I was supposed to look for another word, wasn't I? It was nature. Yeah, see, you made a mistake already. Awesome. But yeah, I usually highlight when words are in the question stems, I definitely highlight those if I can remember them as best as I can. So I didn't even get to highlight nature when I did the first through. I forgot about that one. But as you can see, I was able to find it pretty quick. And again, that just probably would have cost me like a 10-15 seconds on the actual exam if I forgot to. But I mean, you just got to go back and find it. It's no big deal. But yeah, I try my best to highlight those sorts of things, my own conclusion, stuff like that. Usually negating terms like however or alternatively or conversely, I'll highlight those. Sometimes I highlight quotes, sometimes I don't. This one I didn't just because I've heard this quote before many times. When I was their age, I could draw like Raphael, but it has taken me a whole lifetime to learn to draw like them. I mean, I've heard that 1,000 times. I'll preface that my parents are very much into art. That's kind of their hobby. So that's why I'm well versed on this. I mean, like growing up, it was never you never went on vacation to a beach. You always went on vacation to a museum. So much so my sister is getting her PhD in museum studies right now. I mean, like that's just we grew up in museums, so maybe this passage is somewhat easier for me just because I have quite diverse knowledge of Picasso, Raphael, and George Braque, but I don't think George Braque is going to come up in the question options. It's just an example. But anyways, so after I read this, I already have 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Oh my God. This is what happens when I try to explain it. Anyways, we'll run it from the top. Like I said, I already know what these questions are asking. So basically, how I tackled when I was practicing on my full lengths, it was basically when I got to a question, I wanted to be able to answer it without looking at the answers, right? Like every single question is a free response question, and you got to be able to know it just based off of the passage. That doesn't work all the time, but it definitely helped me. We'll see if any of these ones are like free response-esque where I could answer them without seeing the options, but I mean, who knows? So question 1, according to the author, Picasso's artistic achievements were in large part the result of his. According to the author, I go straight to my conclusions. So my conclusion is that Picasso's output during the first decade of his life was unusually skilled rather than frankly precocious, but that no word short of prodigy can describe him in his spectacular progress over the next several years. Just based off of this, author's not denying that he was skilled, but he's also, this is a big word, spectacular. You don't hear that too often. I can't remember the last time I said spectacular in my normal dialect, but alas, here we are. Spectacular progress. So that's the one that kind of jumps out at me, at least. Spectacular progress. So if I was to answer this one, according to the author, Picasso's artistic achievements were a large part. Yes, he was extremely skilled. He was a prodigy. He had that. He just had it in him, but also in his spectacular progress over the next several years. And I'm especially drawn to this spectacular progress bit because, like I said, in my own conclusion, this is what the author thinks. If we go to what everyone else thinks, which is the standard story, is that he did everything without effort, you know. He was just able to do it, no progress, doesn't mention progress, just says that this fellow was pretty good at painting, and that was it. So for this one, according to the author, Picasso's artistic achievements were in large part the result of spectacular progress. That's how I would answer this one. It was a free response, and I just got to find which one has something related to progress. Anyways, start from the top. Retention of the effortless genius of childhood. Nothing about progress. I don't think it's A. Rejection of the art movements of this time. There wasn't, this is way out of scope. There wasn't one mention of art movements, how the world was viewing art during Picasso's time. Practice of making multiple revisions and amendments. I do like the practice word, just because initially I think of practice as learning and progress and stuff like that, but making multiple revisions and amendments, not really mentioned in, I guess it's somewhat mentioned down here somewhere where he says he looked at her 80 times and then took it away and painted it. That just seems like a stretch though, definitely better than A and B, but I'm not completely sold. D, learning to work with apparent spontaneity. There's the word I was looking for, learning, spectacular progress, apparent spontaneity. Probably, I mean, it's not a leap, but this is definitely the best one. I like it way more than I like D way more than I like C. So just from process of elimination, I'd get to D pretty easily. The word see, that's the one I missed. The word nature is used in the sense of, we know it's down here, two kinds of artists, unreflective virtuoso, who relies on nature, and the cerebral structure, who relies on understanding. Mozart's the first, Beethoven's the second. I'm going to try not to answer this with my vast knowledge of classical music, because that would not be fair to you guys. So I'll try to answer it via the passage. Two kinds of artists, unreflective virtuoso, who relies on nature, and the cerebral structure, who relies on understanding versus. So in this one, I would, because this one relies on nature, this one relies on understanding. So I feel like nature and understanding are juxtaposed. I'm not even going to try to say it. They're opposite of each other in this sense. I tried to give you all a 500 IQ word, but whatever. Yeah, they're not. Nature and understanding are opposites in this one. So in my preliminary thinking, I'm going to say, what is the opposite of nature in these options? This is not one that I would really feel comfortable just free responsing. This is one that I would like to see the answer options, so we'll go to them right now. Objects and scenes of the natural world. Definitely not this one. This is nature as in nature that's outside, not the opposite of understanding, right? We're looking for the opposite of understanding, not A. Elementary aesthetic principles. Out of scope, I think. Definitely not the opposite of understanding. I'm gonna say no. Intuitive artistic mastery. I do like intuitive. I think understanding is learning. Intuitive means you just got it. I do like C quite a bit. Uncontrolled creative impulses. I don't think uncontrolled is opposite of understanding. I do like that it's somewhat spontaneous, and you do kind of get some sense of human nature in it, I suppose. But C is definitely better with the intuitive. The word intuitive is just, it's so much, it is just so much the opposite of understanding. So I'm gonna go with C on that one. What is the author's response to the standard story about the origin of Picasso's genius? Okay, so we know the standard story is that he didn't have to work for anything. It was effortless for him. It was a piece of cake, yada, yada, yada. What the author says is that actually he did have to work, that he was skilled. Don't get him wrong. He was skilled, but he definitely made progress over his years. So there is some friction in between the standard story and his own conclusion. So I'm going to be looking for one that goes against it. It's not like a complete dismissal. He's not saying that it's entirely wrong, because he does acknowledge that he was talented, unusually, like right here, he was unusually skilled. That you just have that. So it's not, he's not completely refuting it, but he definitely has his reservations with the standard story. So let's go to this. Acceptance, no. Picasso's early drawings are described as unusually skilled and his progress as spectacular. While yes, that is true. This is a tricky one, because if you're in the heat of it, you might get hung up that this is a good, the second part is a good response. It's like, you had me in the second half, but acceptance, he is not accepting of it. So no on that one. Neutral, it's better than acceptance, only to introduce the discussion of Picasso's eventual virtuosity. This is out of scope. I'm going to say no. Revisionist, it is presented as an applicable only to his earliest efforts. If we look back at his own conclusion, again, I like time and dates, several years. I think it's out of scope. Skepticism, great word. It's not completely refuting it, but you do have your reservations. Picasso's earliest drawings are presumed to be not especially precocious. Here we are. Was unusually skilled rather than frankly precocious. That is a winner. That one is right for sure. The assertion that Picasso's early productions contain harbingers of his later art is not clearly consistent with which of the following, with the information about. Okay, focus on that. You really, I don't want to forget this when I'm doing this. I do not want to forget this. So I got to remember basically which one of these is opposite of what I would think of the assertion that Picasso's earliest productions contain harbingers of his later art. All right. So if I think back to the passage, harbinger was mentioned somewhere. Let's see, right there. Harbinger is a somewhat common word, but I think it was only mentioned this one time. So we'll see what happens here. Later genius appear in fragmented and distorted aspects of form and scale, depictions, yada, 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 visual poems. Okay, so just some little background right there. Not clearly consistent. The way Picasso described his first drawings, I mean, like, it just doesn't really answer anything. I mean, it doesn't go against it, or maybe it does. Look, there it is again. Not, you got to remember that you're looking for the one that's false in this. He described his first drawings as being like Raphael, remember? Crazy, and he had to learn how to draw like a kid. Describe when he was youthful. He painted academically. He couldn't, he couldn't make he couldn't compete with children when he was a kid, right? He couldn't make children's work when he was a kid. Anyways, that's not consistent with this one, with the, I guess, visual puns, outrageous caricatures, stuff like that. The distortion of form and scale in these works didn't really happen. Well, I mean, like, yeah, but not when he was a kid. The lack of drawings from his first 8 years, unrelated. The playfulness of his graphic experimentation. I mean, yeah, this was a tricky one. This one's kind of like, the right answer is there. I know this one's right. These ones are just kind of like goofy for me to read. Also, this question stem is just like a chore to read, and adding in the not. But when I look at this stuff of what his future work is known for, what is not consistent with his future stuff would be how he describes his old work. And how Picasso describes his old work is like Raphael, lack childishness when his future stuff does. So I'm going with A. This is kind of a tough one. This is one that I would definitely flag, come back to. But since I'm just making this video, I'm running with A. Hopefully it's right. Which of the following innovative forms of art that are identified with Picasso most clearly exemplifies his own implied goals? Okay, remember, what does Picasso want from his, I just read the quote. I know it off the top of my head. I didn't even have to read. I would have to read this passage to be able to answer this question. I know that Picasso, just from knowing this quote, when I was their age, I could draw like Raphael, but it has taken me a whole lifetime to learn to draw like them. It's taking you a whole lifetime to do something. That's probably what you're working towards. That's probably your goal. So which one exemplifies, I suppose, childlike drawing? Sculpture is constructed of very surprising found objects. Not bad. The blue period. This is when he was super depressed. Paintings with muted colors and elongated figures. Kids don't normally draw in all blue and stuff like that. So I don't think that this one's very applicable. It's not giving me kid vibes. Plates decorated with boldly colored, simply indicated faces. I like the bold colors, simple faces. Plates is also kind of fun. Single tone paintings with hard-edged, multifaceted perspectives. This seems like a brutalist way of painting, which is wasn't really even Picasso's style. That's outside knowledge you don't need to know for this, but definitely single tone painting with hard-edged, multifaceted perspectives. I don't know many children that are drawing paintings multifaceted perspectives in this brutalist fashion. Oops, I don't think it's D. So now I'm in between A and C. What I'm thinking of A is like when kids make sculptures out of things, like what comes to mind is like a macaroni necklace, found objects. Surprising to make a necklace out of macaroni, So I somewhat like this, but I like this one a lot more because this one, with the example that I have to justify A, it's a stretch, So I don't think it's A, because I think C is so much better. I mean, kids painting a plate decorated with boldly colored. Kids use bold colors, primary colors, simple faces. We're just talking circles, eyes, nose, mouth. That is it. Maybe they'll throw an ear on there if they're feeling whimsical, but usually not. C is a great answer for this one. Like I said, I didn't even need to read the passage for this one, but I just got lucky with getting a good art-related passage. Anyways, which passage information provides the strongest reason to support that Picasso had always been an artist of Apollinaire's first type? Okay, Apollinaire was down here. Let's read it again. I started that there were two kinds of artists: unreflective virtuoso who relies on nature. If we remember, we did nature as like intuitiveness, and a cerebral structure who relies on understanding. So Apollinaire is saying that Picasso had always been the first type. Even though he is a second type, he had always been the first type as well. Which passage information provides the strongest reason to support that Picasso had always been an artist of Apollinaire's first type? I think this one's, I mean, I like it somewhat, but it's lacking a little, it's lacking a like one thing. I can't put my finger on it, but it's lacking one thing that just is making me not so confident, but it's somewhat okay. I'll read the rest. Picasso's early drawings indicate exuberant experimentation. And I do remember that from up here. That because Harbingers is a ode to the past that is later genius kind of pulled from these things, but we don't know if he explicitly dates again 2 decades later. We don't know if he actually pulled from this on this next stuff. I kind of like this answer. I don't know. Picasso wrote that in his youth, he painted in quite academic way. I don't know. Picasso revised his portrait of not this one. All right, got one down. This is okay. So if I was reading this passage and if I read this and I was having this much trouble on this one, I would flag this one and move on to the next one. But I'm not going to do that now. We'll try to answer this as best we can. But yeah, on the real thing, if I got a question like this, I would definitely skip it. Flag it. Hopefully in my minutes that I have at the end, I could go over with a fresh set of eyes and find it. Painted in a quite academic way. Early drawings indicate exuberant experimentations. Picasso had always been an unreflective virtuoso. So as a prodigy, Picasso epitomized the second type, but said a pioneer, he was able to convert himself into the first. Never has there been so fantastic a spectacle as a metamorphosis he underwent in becoming an artist of the first type. Picasso himself sensed the paradox of this transformation when he complained to Gertrude Stein, if I can draw as well as Raphael, I have at least the right to choose my way, and they should recognize that, right? But no, they say no. After reading that bit, I don't think that this Raphael whip, somewhat related, but it doesn't answer the question. Real in his youth that he painted in an academic way. I think it's B. I think it's B. I mean, honestly, just because this is like, this bit up here is the only sense of, the only one that matches, you know? We're talking about experimentation, visual puns, caricatures, juxtapositions. That looks like experimentation to me. So, I mean, like, definitely this part is matched with this part for sure. Does it answer the question? I think so. I'm like 75-25 on this one. Anyways, I think it's B. It's gotta be B. These other ones just don't make too much sense. I'm sorry I can't like help you guys on this. This one is just kind of like, you just, some of them you get a feeling. Anyways, hopefully this one's easier. But yeah, I would have skipped that one for sure. The author's characterization of Picasso's artistic aim suggests the retort, don't worry, it will. That was at the very end. Meant that the painting, okay, so we remember that the painting came back and it did not look like her, but he said, don't worry, it will. Intended to portray Stein as she would look in old age. Not that one. That one's just, that'd be way too literal. Would become a more accurate portrait of, it didn't say anything about him working on it after he released it. So no. Was concerned with pictorial qualities other than literal accurate likeness. I like that. Was an attempt to teach viewers to look at portraits in a more analytical way. I mean, like, this is in between C and D. D, I don't think is a bad answer, but I definitely like C better. annihilated, finish the portrait away from Stein, subsequent mass-like features for realistic ones. Chastised because the portrait did not look like Stein. Yeah. I like it. Did not look like Stein, so it was focused on stuff other than actually looking like her. I think that's a good answer. Again, running through, confident on this one. This one I would have skipped for sure. Confident on this one. Might have skipped this one. Depends on how I was feeling. Like if I got this passage in the middle, I might have like pushed through. But if this was like my first passage, I definitely would have skipped it. And like if you get a question like this in the first passage, I'm skipping it. But towards the tail end, I would be less inclined to skip it. This one, got that one right. Got that one right. I think I got this one right. Yeah, let's check it. Right, 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 right. Awesome. Another 100. Let's see this question. Despite the author's endorsement of the belief of Picasso and Apollinaire that Picasso deliberately converted himself into an unreflective virtuoso, the early proliferation of exuberant, apparently improvisational graphic experiments could encourage the speculation that he'd always been an artist of this type. Okay, so I guess my understanding was somewhat there. Sorry for the honking. It just wasn't the best. But yeah, that's how I would have gone through this. Hopefully it helps. I know it's kind of like it was a lot to go through. My thought process is wacky. I get off topic very easily, but I mean that's what happens on the test day. Like I said, I got ADHD, so when I read these words, like when I come across Mozart and Beethoven, I'm gonna instantly start thinking about playing piano. And when I think of Raphael, I'm gonna think about going back to Rome and all that kind of stuff. And stuff like that comes across every passage. There'll be like little tidbits that I kind of run with and lose train of thought for a second, but you just gotta reel yourself back in. Hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Any questions, please let me know. If you want any help on anything else, if you want another video about something, it's my first time making one, so probably sucks, but let me know. Yeah, I'm applying this cycle. This is I took a break from pre-writing secondaries to do this. If I have a successful cycle, if you guys want it, maybe I can like throw up my MCAS application, can go through it with you guys. If I get into any med schools, we'll see. But yeah, this is how I got a 132 on the car section. Hope it was helpful.